Hello students, this is the second part of the second unit, that is errors in measurement systems. In the earlier part we had studied static characteristics and the dynamic characteristics of an instrument. We had studied what are the sources of errors and how to calculate errors. In this part we will be studying about various types of errors such as gross errors or human errors, systematic errors and random errors. Also we will be studying about standards of measurements such as international standards, primary standards, secondary standards, working standards and IEEE standard. In the first part of this unit, we had learned that error is the difference between the true value and the measured value. The error which occur during measurement are generally known as measurement errors. These measurement errors are classified into three types depending upon their sources of origin. The first type is known as gross errors or human errors. The second type is known as systematic errors. These are again classified either as instrumental errors, environmental errors or observational errors. And finally, the third type is known as random errors. We shall study about each of them in the next few slides. The first type of measurement errors are known as gross errors. Gross errors occur due to lack of experience of the observer while taking the measurement values. The values of gross errors will vary from one observer to the other. Some errors are easy to detect while others may be elusive. Sometimes the gross errors may occur due to improper use or selection of the instrument, or due to incorrect adjustment of the instruments, or due to human mistakes caused while taking the readings or recording the observations. And finally, it may occur due to computational mistakes while calculating the final measurement results. For example, a well-calibrated voltmeter may give misleading reading when connected in low resistance circuit. This happens because of the loading effects. Hence, errors caused by the loading effects can be avoided by selecting the appropriate instrument. These errors cannot be treated mathematically and also cannot be eliminated completely, but they can be minimized by first choosing the best suitable instrument based on the range of values to be measured and by reading and recording measurement parameters carefully. In general, indicating instruments change ambient conditions to some extent when connected into a complete circuit. Thus, one should not rely only on one reading but at least should take 3 readings, probably under conditions in which instruments are turned on and off. The second type of error is known as systematic error. These errors are produced by an instrument and are of constant uniform deviation during its operation. Systematic errors occur due to the characteristics of the material used in the instrument or due to the shortcomings of the instrument, such as defective or worn part, or due to aging of an instrument, or due to the effects of the environment on the instrument. These errors are sometimes referred to as bias, as they influence all the measurements done using that particular instrument. Now let us see how systematic errors are classified. In general, systematic errors are subdivided into two types. The first type is known as static error and second one is known as dynamic error. Static errors are caused by limitations of the measuring instrument or due to the physical laws governing the behavior of the instrument. Dynamic errors are caused by the instrument not responding fast enough to follow the changes in the measured variable. That is, output doesn't change at the same speed as the input. Systematic errors are also classified into three types depending on their sources of origin. These are instrumental errors, environmental errors, and observational errors. We will be studying about these three errors in the following slides. Instrumental errors. Instrumental errors are the first type of systematic errors. They are inherent in measuring instruments, that is, they are always present in the measuring instruments due to their mechanical structure or due to shortcomings of the instrument or due to loading effects. Instrumental errors depend on the type of the instrument used. For example, in D-Arsnoval moment or in PMMC instrument, instrumental errors can occur due to friction in the bearings of various moving parts, due to irregular spring tensions or stretching of the spring, or reduction in tension due to improper handling of the instruments, or finally due to overloading of the instrument. Other causes of the instrumental errors are calibration errors and failure to set the instrument to zero, which causes the instrument to read either higher or lower reading than the actual reading along its entire scale. Instrumental errors can be avoided by first selecting a suitable instrument for a particular measurement application, second by applying correction factors after determining the amount of instrumental error, and third by calibrating the instrument against a standard. The second type of systematic errors are known as environmental errors. Environmental errors occur due to conditions external to the measuring device, that is, due to changes in the environment. These include effects of change in temperature, humidity, pressure, or due to stray magnetic or electrostatic fields which causes interference. For example, a change in temperature causes a change in elastic properties of the spring in the moving coil mechanism, and hence it affects the reading of the instrument. Environmental errors can be avoided by first air conditioning, second by hermetically sealing certain components in the instrument so as to avoid effects of outer heat on the sealed components, and by using magnetic shields to prevent the effects of stray magnetic fields. The third type of systematic errors are known as observational errors. Observational errors are errors which are introduced by the observer or the user while taking the meter readings. Most common example of observational error is parallax error. Parallax errors occur when reading the pointer against the selected scale on an analog device. For example, if you read the scale from side angle view, a measured value of 120 volts may appear either as 123 volts or 117 volts according to which side of the pointer you are viewing from. A 120 volt reading will occur only when you are looking straight on at the pointer suspended over the scale. These errors are mostly caused due to habits of the individual users. The last type of errors that we need to study are the random errors. Random errors occur due to unknown sources and remain even after gross and systematic errors have been substantially reduced or at least accounted for. Random errors are generally an accumulation of a large number of small effects. These errors are difficult to determine in ordinary process of doing measurements. These errors may be of real concern only in measurements requiring high degree of accuracy or in some critical systems. Such errors are normally small and follow the laws of probability. Thus, random errors can be treated mathematically. It is not possible to eliminate or minimize these random errors. For example, suppose a voltage is being monitored by voltmeter which is read after every 15 minutes. Although the instrument operates under ideal environmental condition and is accurately calibrated before doing the measurements, it still gives readings that vary slightly over the period of observations. Random errors cannot be corrected directly by calibration or any other known method of control and cannot be explained without detailed investigation. But if we want to get more accurate measurement values without any random errors, then it is possible by following two steps. First, take more number of readings by different observers, and second, obtain the best approximation of the true value after statistically analyzing the data obtained in the first step. Now, we will see what are the parameters for analyzing statistical data. Now, let us understand what is statistical analysis and why it is important with an example. Suppose the true value of the voltage across a resistor is 50 volts, but when measured using voltmeter to take 5 different readings, we get 50.4, 50.3, 50.2, 49.9 and 50.1. So it is very difficult for the user to select the most accurate reading out of these 5 readings as compared to the true value 50 volts. Hence, statistical analysis of measurement data is done to avoid such uncertainty involved in obtaining the correct reading. For better and meaningful statistical analysis, usually a large number of measurements are required. Systematic errors should be smaller as compared to the random errors because statistical analysis cannot remove fixed bias contained in all measurements. Parameters used in statistical analysis are mean, median, variance, deviation from the mean, average deviation, and standard deviation. We will be learning all these parameters in the following slides. The first statistical parameter is arithmetic mean. Let x1, x2, x3 till xn be the n readings of a particular variable x under measurement. Then arithmetic mean or average value of these n readings can be calculated using formula x bar is equal to x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus xn divided by n. That is, we are adding up all the readings divided by the total number of readings. This summation can be written as summation of n is equal to 1 to n xn divided by n, where x bar is the arithmetic mean, x suffix n is the nth reading taken. For example, x1 will be the first reading, x2 will be second reading, and so on. N is the total number of readings. The most probable value of the measured variable is the arithmetic mean of the number of readings taken. When number of readings is very large, the best approximation is possible. That is, mean or the average value will be approximately equal to the true value. When the measurement data is very large, that is, if the total number of readings n is very large, then it is difficult to calculate the mean or the average value. In this case, we will be using the second statistical parameter, which is known as median. To calculate the median value, first we have to arrange the readings in the ascending order. Then use one of these formulas depending upon whether the total number of readings n is an even number or an odd number. Now case 1, when the total number of readings n is an odd number, we have to use formula n, that is median, is equal to x suffix n plus 1 divided by 2. Now for example, if n is equal to 49, 49 is an odd number. So we have to use this formula n is equal to x suffix 49 plus 1 divided by 2. Simplify this, so we are getting x suffix 50 by 2, which is equal to x suffix 25. So in this case, median will be equal to the 25th reading. Similarly, in case 2, that is when total number of readings n is an even number, we have to use formula n is equal to x suffix n by 2 plus x suffix n by 2 plus 1 divided by 2. Now in this case, for example, n is equal to 50. 50 is an even number, so we are using this formula. In this case, m is equal to x suffix 50 by 2 plus x suffix 50 by 2 plus 1 divided by 2. Simplify this, so we are getting x suffix 25 plus x suffix 25 plus 1 divided by 2. So the final value for the median in this case will be equal to x suffix 25 plus x suffix 26 divided by 2. This will be the value of median in this second case. Now let us learn about the third type of statistical parameter, that is deviation from the mean. Deviation from the mean is defined as the difference between the given reading of a particular measurement and the mean value of set of readings. That is, deviation from the mean is the departure of a given reading from the arithmetic mean of group of readings. If deviation of the first reading x1 is denoted as d1, similarly if deviation of the second reading x2 is denoted as d2, and so on, then deviation from the mean can be expressed as d1 is equal to x1 minus x bar, d2 is equal to x2 minus x bar, and similarly dn is equal to xn minus x bar, where dn is the deviation of the nth reading from the mean, xn is the value of the nth reading, and x bar is the mean or the average value. Deviations can be either positive or negative, and the algebraic sum of all these deviations must be 0. The next most important statistical parameter is standard deviation. Standard deviation is defined as the root mean square of the deviation. That is, it is given as the square root of sum of all the individual squared deviations divided by the total number of readings. Mathematically, it can be expressed as sigma is equal to root of d1 square plus d2 square plus d3 square so on till dn square divided by n. Please note, this formula is valid only if the total number of readings, that is n, is greater than or equal to 20. If n is less than 20, then standard deviation is given by formula sigma is equal to root of d1 square plus d2 square plus d3 square so on till dn square divided by n minus 1. Only difference between the two formulas is that n in this case is replaced by n minus 1 if n is less than 20. Reduction in standard deviation means the improvement in the measurement, that is, readings of the measurement are more accurate. The next parameter is average deviation. Average deviation is an indication of the precision of the instrument. It is defined as the sum of the absolute values of the deviation divided by the total number of readings. Mathematically, it may be expressed as d suffix av is equal to absolute value of d1 plus absolute value of d2 till absolute value of dn divided by n. This can be also written as summation n is equal to 1 till n absolute value of dn divided by n, where d suffix av is equal to average deviation and n is the total number of readings. Highly precise instruments yield a low average deviation between readings. The last statistical parameter that we need to study is variance. Variance is defined as the square of the standard deviation. We know that standard deviation is denoted as sigma. Hence, we can write variance V is equal to sigma square. Also, variance is defined as the mean square of deviation or average of square of deviations. This can be mathematically represented as V is equal to d1 square plus d2 square plus d3 square till dn square upon n. This is the average of square of the deviations. Use this formula if the number of readings n is greater than 20. If total number of readings n is less than 20, you have to simply replace this denominator n by n minus 1. Here in these formulas, d1, d2, d3 till dn are the deviations of first, second, third till nth readings from mean respectively. So, using all these statistical parameters, we can analyze the readings of particular measurement and we can get more accurate measurement values. Let us try to solve a numerical problem. The problem reads that for the given data, you need to find arithmetic mean, deviation of each value or each reading, algebraic sum of the deviations, average deviation and standard deviation. The given data is x1 is equal to 49.7, x2 is equal to 50.1, x3 is equal to 50.2, x4 is equal to 49.6 and x5 is equal to 49.7. So here there are 5 readings being taken. You need to find arithmetic mean first. So arithmetic mean is given by equation x bar is equal to x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4 plus x5 divided by 5, because n is 5 in this case. Now substitute the values of x1, x2, x3, x4 and x5 in this equation. Add them up, divide by 5. So arithmetic mean turns out to be 49.86. Next, you need to find deviation of each reading or each value. So suppose we are finding the deviation of the first reading x1 from mean x bar and it is denoted by d1, then it is given by equation d1 is equal to x1 minus x bar. In this case, x1 is given as 49.7 and x bar was calculated earlier as 49.86. So d1 is equal to 49.7 minus 49.86, which is equal to minus 0.16. Similarly, we can find d2, d3, d4 and d5 simply by replacing x1 by x2, x3, x4 and x5 respectively. So we'll get deviation after calculations. After that, you need to find algebraic sum of all these deviations, which is given by d total is equal to d1 plus d2 plus d3 plus d4 plus d5. Remember, this is algebraic sum, not absolute sum. So we have to consider their sign. So after adding up, we'll get answer for algebraic sum of deviations as 0. Next, we need to find average deviation, which is given by equation d suffix av is equal to absolute value of d1 plus absolute value of d2 plus absolute value of d3 plus absolute value of d4 and absolute value of d5. Because here n is equal to 5 divided by 5. Remember, this is absolute value. So you have to ignore these signs and only take the magnitudes. This is minus 0.16, but it will be taken as plus 0.16 plus 0.24 plus 0.34 plus 0.26 plus 0.16, which is equal to 1.16 divided by 5. Answer for average deviation is equal to 0.232. Finally, we need to find standard deviation, which is given by formula root of d1 square plus d2 square plus d3 square plus d4 square plus d5 square divided by n minus 1. We are considering n minus 1 here because n is equal to 5, which is less than 20. So now substitute the values for deviations and divided by 5 minus 1. So answer for standard deviation will be 0.27. Let us solve one more numerical problem. Problem states that a voltmeter having a sensitivity of 1 kilo ohm per volt is connected across an unknown resistance in series with the milliammeter reading 80 volts on 150 volt scale. This means that a voltmeter is used to find the voltage across an unknown resistance. Sensitivity of this voltmeter is 1 kilo ohm per volt. That is, S is equal to 1 kilo ohm per volt, which can also be written as 1000 ohm per volt. Voltmeter rates 80 volts as the voltage across an unknown resistance. Hence, we can write meter reading Vt is equal to 80 volts. Next information which is given is full scale deflection value of the voltmeter is 150 volts. That means voltmeter can read voltages from 0 to 150 volts. Hence, Vm will be equal to 150 volts. When the milliammeter reads 10 milliamperes, you have to calculate three things. First, apparent resistance or the true value of the unknown resistance. Second, the actual resistance or the measured value of the unknown resistance. And finally, error due to the loading effect of the voltmeter. First, to calculate the apparent or theoretical or the true value of the unknown resistance, you have to use the Ohm's law, that is RT is equal to Vt upon It. Value of Vt is 80 volts, It is 10 milliamperes or 10 into 10 raised to minus 3 amperes. Substitute the values, hence we get apparent or theoretical value for the unknown resistance as 8 kilo ohms. Please note we have neglected the resistance of the milliammeter. Second, to find the actual resistance of the unknown resistance, we have to take into account the effect of the voltmeter resistance since voltmeter is in parallel with the circuit resistance. The theoretical value for the circuit resistance is 8 kilo ohms, but we don't have the resistance of the voltmeter. So to find the voltmeter resistance, we have to use formula RV is equal to S into Vm. S is given as 1000 ohm per volt and Vm is equal to 150 volts. Hence, the voltmeter resistance RV is equal to 150 kilo ohms. We have said that voltmeter resistance is in parallel with the circuit resistance, that is 8 kilo ohms. So formula will be Ra is equal to RT into RV upon RT plus RV. This is the formula for two resistances in parallel. So substitute the values for RT and RV as RT is equal to 8 kilo ohms and RV will be equal to 150 kilo ohms. So we get the final value for the actual value of the unknown resistance as 7.59 kilo ohms. Finally, we need to find the error due to the loading effect of the voltmeter. So here we are calculating the percentage error, which is given by equation percentage error is equal to apparent value minus the actual value upon the apparent value into 100. Apparent value is calculated as 8 kilo ohms and actual value is calculated as 7.59 kilo ohms. Substitute the values. So we get percentage error as 5.13%. So we have seen that a well calibrated voltmeter can give misleading reading when connected across 2 points in a high resistance circuit. This means that the circuit resistance is around 8 kilo ohms, which is very high. Hence, it gives a misleading reading which has the error of 5.13%. Referring to the previous problem, that is numerical problem 5a, if milliammeter reads 600 milliamps and voltmeter reads 30 volts on a 150 volt scale, you have to again calculate apparent resistance or the true value of the unknown resistance, actual resistance or the measured value of the unknown resistance, and error due to the loading effect of the voltmeter. Also, comment on the loading effect due to the voltmeter for numerical problems 5a and 5b respectively. Please note we are using the same voltmeter having sensitivity equal to 1000 ohm per volt. So as compared to the previous problem, only changes are first Vt will be equal to 30 volts. that is voltmeter reading now is 30 volts and milliammeter reading will be 600 milliamps, that is equal to 600 into 10 raised to minus 3 amperes or 0.6 amperes. So first, to find the apparent resistance or theoretical value of the unknown resistance, we have to use the Ohm's law, that is RT is equal to Vt upon IT. We have the values for Vt and IT. Vt is equal to 30 volts, IT is equal to 0.6 amperes. Substitute the values, so we get the apparent value of the unknown resistance as 50 ohms. Please note we have neglected the resistance of the milliammeter. Second, we have to find the actual resistance of the unknown resistance. So actual resistance of the unknown resistance is found using the voltmeter. So in this case, we have to take into consideration the effect of the voltmeter resistance. But value of the voltmeter resistance is not given in this problem. So to find the value of the voltmeter resistance, we have to use formula RV is equal to S into Vm. We have the values for S as 1000 ohm per volt and Vm is equal to 150 volts. Substitute the values in this formula, so we get voltmeter resistance RV is equal to 150 kilo ohms. This voltmeter resistance is in parallel with the circuit resistance whose theoretical value is calculated as 50 ohms. So we have to use formula for two resistances in parallel, that is Ra will be equal to RT into RV upon RT plus RV. Here RT theoretical value is equal to 50 ohm and RV is calculated as 150 kilo ohms. Substitute the values, we'll get the actual value of the unknown resistance Ra is equal to 50.017 ohms. Finally, we have to calculate the error due to the loading effect of the voltmeter. Here we are calculating the percentage error, which is given as absolute value of the apparent value minus the actual value upon the apparent value. Apparent value is calculated as 50 ohms and actual value is calculated as 50.017 ohms. So substitute the values and we get percentage error is equal to 0.034%, which is much less than the previous case. So in previous case, that is numerical problem 5a, well calibrated voltmeter had given misleading reading when connected across two points having the high resistance. But in this case, we get much reliable reading having error equal to 0.034% since it is connected across a lower circuit resistance, which is equal to only 50 ohms. So a voltmeter has a loading effect in both these cases when connected in the circuit during measurement. In our everyday life, we use various units to measure different quantities. For example, unit of length is meters, unit of resistance is ohms, unit of current is amperes, and so on. These units of measurements are represented by a particular reference or some standards. Now, let us try to understand what are these standards of measurements. A standard is a physical representation of a unit of measurement. These standards are used to determine the values of other physical quantities by the comparison method. That is, the quantity which has to be measured is compared with these standards to find their values. A unit is realized or found with reference to a material standard or some natural phenomena which can include physical and atomic constants. Similarly, different standards have been developed for other units of measurements which can include fundamental units or derived mechanical and electrical units. All these standards are preserved at International Bureau of Weights and Measures in Paris. Also, depending on functions and applications, these standards are classified into following categories. These are first one, international standards, primary standards, secondary standards, and finally the working standards. Let us now learn about the first type of standards of measurements, that is international standards. International standards are defined by international agreement. They are periodically evaluated and checked by absolute measurements which are in terms of fundamental units of physics. They represent certain units of measurement to the closest possible accuracy which can be attained. That is, units defined by international standards have highest possible accuracy as compared to the other standards. These standards are not available to ordinary users for measurements and calibrations. International standards are maintained, evaluated, and checked periodically by International Bureau of Weights and Measures in Paris. International ohms and international amperes are examples of international units defined by the international standards. International ohms is defined as the resistance offered by the column of mercury having mass of 14.4521 grams, uniform cross-sectional area and length of 106.300 cm to the flow of constant current at the melting point of ice. And international amperes is an unvarying current which when passed through a solution of silver nitrate in water, which is prepared in accordance with stipulated specifications, deposits silver at the rate of 0.00111,800 grams per second. Now these international units were replaced in 1948 by the absolute units. These units are more accurate than the international units and differ slightly from them. For example, 1 international ohm is equal to 1.00049 absolute ohm and 1 international ampere is equal to 0.99985 absolute ampere. Now, after learning about the international standards, let us learn about the primary standards. Primary standards are used for verification and calibration of secondary standards. These are maintained at national standards laboratories located in various countries. These standards are not available for use outside these laboratories. The primary standards are calibrated by the absolute measurements at each of these national laboratories. These standards are absolute standards of high accuracy and hence can be used as ultimate reference standards. In the previous slide, we had seen that primary standards were maintained by national standards laboratories. Now, in this slide, we will learn about the next type of standards of measurements, that is secondary standards. Each industry has their own measurement and calibration laboratory. Secondary standards are used as basic reference standards in these measurement and calibration laboratories in industries. Each industry has its own secondary standards. These secondary standards are maintained by the particular industry to which they belong to. Each laboratory periodically sends its secondary standard to National Standards Laboratory for calibration and comparison against the primary standard. After comparison, verification and calibration, the National Standards Laboratory returns the secondary standard to that particular industrial laboratory with a certification of measuring accuracy compared to that of the primary standard. The next type of standards of measurement that we have to learn are known as working standards. These are the principal tools of measurement laboratory which are used to check and calibrate laboratory instruments for better accuracy and performance. For example, manufacturers of electronic components such as capacitors, resistors, etc. use a working standard for checking the component values being manufactured. Finally, we need to study about IEEE standards which are very important especially for our branch of engineering. These are slightly different standards maintained by Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, that is IEEE. These standards are developed by IEEE Standards Association, also known as IEEE SA. These standards define standard procedures, nomenclature, definitions, test methods, and so on. It also specifies the test equipment to avoid disparity in test results for various measurements. These are used to develop global standards in wide range of industries which can include power and energy, consumer technology, consumer electronics, biomedical and healthcare, learning technology, information technology, robotics, telecommunication, wireless communication, sensor networks, home automation, Internet of Things or IoT, artificial intelligence or AI, transportation, nanotechnology, information assurance, and many more. So, you might have seen that almost all industries use certain IEEE standards. This table shows examples of IEEE 802 standards. IEEE 802 standards is a collection of networking standards that provide specification for technologies such as Ethernet, broadband, fiber optic communication or networks, wireless networks, and so on. These are some of the references for this unit. For this presentation, I had used textbook on electronic instrumentation by H.S. Kelsey, also a textbook on modern electronic instrumentation and measurement techniques by A.D. Helfrich and William Cooper. and I had referred website for electronic measuring instruments tutorial at tutorialspoint.com. Please feel free to contact me for any further details or queries. Thank you.